Hello and welcome to Catamount Community Connection, our public affairs program that we air each and every Sunday. I'm Brian Collamore, your host, and we call that show Community Connection because we speak with community leaders from the business, professional, nonprofit, and, as we will today, political arenas. The goal of the program is to inform and make our listeners aware of things that are going on, not just in Rutland County, but throughout the state. The legislature, of course, back in session and back after a week's vacation, if you will, for town meeting week. So there will be some bills coming out later this year, which will affect people in terms of new regulations, etc. Our show is brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since 1846. And we're already looking forward to the 179th Vermont State Fair coming up August 12th through the 16th. It seems like a long way away, but it's really not that far away. We're happy today to, first of all, congratulate both of the guests today, one of them being reelected. I guess technically they both are sort of getting reelected. Alderman Larry Cupoli and Alderman Bill Gillam with us today. And Bill, you've been on the board for quite a while and just got reelected. Larry spent some time on the board, I think filling a seat that was vacant after he had left the Vermont State Legislature. So he has the ability, I guess, to be in two places at once, and it's always good to see you both. So congratulations to both of you, and welcome in.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian.
So I guess at this point, this program will air this coming Sunday, which I believe, let me just check the calendar here.
16th.
The 16th, yeah. So this
Next
will
day
air
is a national holiday.
On March 16th. You're right. The 17th, of course, a national holiday, St. Patrick's Day. And I think that's when you folks in the local city council will go back into action. Don't you have a meeting soon after?
Yeah, we have a meeting on St. Patrick's Day,
Okay.
Monday. It's a normal board meeting, but that's what we call a reorganizational meeting.
Okay.
That's when we have to pick a new president. That's when the new president assigns committee assignments, because obviously things are going to shift very rapidly because of some new members coming in.
Right.
And chairmanships are going to change a little bit. So all those things are going to happen on the 17th. And then we all get sworn in. The new members get sworn in, and the re-elected members get sworn in on the 17th by the mayor.
So you've been at it for quite a while, Bill.
Yes, I have.
How long have you been on the board?
First time around, I was there for 12 years, and I left for a while, and then I was appointed to fill Dr. Cook's seat 3 terms ago, and I've been there since.
And for those of you, and maybe there are lots of people listening that aren't aware, how many people sit on the board? How often do you meet? What are some of the committees that you could get assigned to? And maybe you could talk about some of the ones that you hope you get picked for.
Sure.
And we'll go through that with Larry, too. But just give us a little bit of a history. Yeah.
There is 11 members.
Okay.
1 member is always the president, which is elected by the membership. There's 10 active votes on the floor. The president does not vote unless there is a tie, just like the Senate and the Speaker.
With the lieutenant governor, yeah. Okay.
So that's how it works there. The president assigns the committees, and last time around I've been on 5 or 6 committees, and I've been on 2 organizations, the Vermont or the Marble Valley Transit, which is the bus, and the Solid Waste District, which I'm now the chair, representing the city on both those programs. And I'm also served as the chair of the Public Works Committee, which is a very big committee this time around, because we have mammoth amount of projects coming out. The last 3 years, we've been doing a lot of work, and now coming up is the TIF district we're going to have to be voting on here in October, so we can do the Center Street project to support the hotel project. So there is a massive amount of work to be done, and this is not going to be a party for these new members coming in, because there's a lot of things got to get decided and move projects along.
Yeah, we had, I think, a total 3 or 4 new, something like that. I mean, some of them have been on it before.
Four
new members.
Okay.
Kiana got reelected, and I got reelected from the incumbents.
Okay.
So 3 incumbents have lost, and Barbara Gallo did not.
Chose not to run.
Chose not to run.
Yeah.
So are you hoping you'll get back on the same committees, or are you looking for a change?
I'm hoping to be still Public Works, because I'm also serving on the TIF committee, so that's sort of a nice match because I can usher what the TIF committees decide what we need to do for public works. The hotel can't go in unless we do some of these major public works projects, water, sewer, stormwater. Some power lines that got to get moved. So there's some stuff that has to happen. To do that, they're going to have to rip the street up. They're going to have to rip the sidewalks up to do that. Because right now we got 100-year-old pipes sitting under the ground just waiting for an accident to happen.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if any of them are still wooden, but there was a time when there was wooden pipes, believe it or not. So, okay, you hope to return to the committees you were on. Larry, how about you?
Well, I'm not sure what committees I'll be appointed to. I would certainly like to be on, at least have some part of the Finance Committee. In general, the General Committee is always interesting. There's a lot of interesting things that happen there. That seems to be somewhat of a dumping ground for a lot of conversations that happen in the I say the well of the House, but that's not in the chamber.
Chambers.
I would certainly look forward to having some of those committees. Not interested in chairing any committees because I'm also involved in a lot of other issues and a lot of other organizations.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to this 2-year period.
So there are 11 members of the Board of Aldermen and 4 new people, if you will. We also have the re-election of the current mayor, Mike Dunches, so he will be part of the administration again. And hopefully everybody can work well together. He certainly, has taken a progressive stance in many cases with some of the things that went on. I don't mean that in a political way. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's just, he's full of energy, I guess is the way I would phrase that. And by the way, congratulations to Mike Dunches for re-election. Larry, how different, and I think we talked about this in shows before this, you spent a lot of time in local situations, but then you were in the House for, I think, 10 or 12 years?
10 years,
10,
yes.
Okay. So what's different about being up in Montpelier and being in Rutland in terms of political stuff?
Well, I think, obviously, I think the quick answer is that Rutland is quite local, and you hear from people locally that are concerned about things like sidewalks or streets that need to be repaved and kids playing in the road that might get hit by a car. I mean, I've already had, since my election to the board, I've already had 5 or 6 phone calls about different issues. And it's very different. On the state level is somewhat more difficult because you're getting calls from everywhere. I've had constituents from Norwich, Vermont call me, especially serving on the Education Committee was really interesting because everyone was there. You were dealing with all kinds of people from the Superintendent's Association to the Principals Association to the NEA. I mean, it was quite amazing, and it was a lot of work.
Well, that's for sure. We were kind of kidding around the other day when somebody said, yeah, I'm in the Senate Education or I'm on the House Education Committee. Oh, well, you got nothing to do then this year. And I said, wow, that's not true at all. They were just kidding. That's probably, issue number one. It's gone from housing to public safety and now the educational system and the governance thereof and also the funding thereof. And those are big, big issues. I will be as honest as I can. I don't think we're going to solve every single last piece of that this year. We will be back again in the second year of the biennium next year to tackle a little bit more of it. And in fact, it probably won't even be settled at the end of next year. I think it's a 3 or 4 year project before we're done. The governor has obviously put forth his own vision of how the educational system should look. We've gone from quite a few. I'm trying to remember the exact number. There's a lot of school districts and a lot of supervisory unions, and he wanted to get down to 5 districts. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that was just sort of advanced as a possibility, knowing that it would be changed at some point along the way. I don't know what the maximum number is that the administration's going to be comfortable with. I think in a lot of ways you could line it up with our tech centers and probably make pretty good case for that. But anyway, so to Larry's point, it is different being in the legislature, or as we say, the General Assembly. Is 150 House members, 30 senators. In my case, I represent 27 towns, so it's even more of a regional or even a statewide situation, more so than the House members, whose districts are much smaller, but who also vote on statewide issues. There's no doubt about that. Everybody's going to get a say in terms of the way we restructure our educational system. Energy is another big topic. We've heard a lot of people who are pushing for the repeal of the so-called clean heat standard and the private right of action, which contained in the Global Warming Solutions Act. So we'll see how that goes. And I don't mean to drift into state politics, but it does all sort of come together at some point. Alderman Gillam mentioned the TIF district, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. I know there'll be major reconstruction of Center Street and probably Whale Street, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And I know the Vermont Economic, what is it called? VEPSI. Yeah, the Progress Council. Did they finally bless this, or are we still waiting for their final blessing?
We did our presentation 2 weeks ago now.
2 weeks ago.
We did a presentation to them, laid out our top 10 projects. Our first tier is top 2 projects. They are going to vote either this end of this month or April meeting. They have staff people who actually do the research and check all the numbers out, make sure everything's cool, and what we say is what's supposed to be happening. The first tier is the hotel in the pit property. Well, that's what we call it. That's what everybody calls it. And that's a $32 million project. For the what-ifs, they can't put the hotel in unless the city does these things. So we need to do all the infrastructure. We need to do water, sewer, stormwater, and the underground power lines for Whale Street. Those are going to be crucial for that hotel to make it happen. What the savings is for the hotel, we don't need to build a parking garage for them because we have a 600 parking garage behind where the hotel's going on Willow and West Street. There's only, I think, 300 spoken for, so they're going to guarantee you 200 of those spots, which is going to make it convenient for them, and it's going to save cost on their project.
Yeah.
They're also putting, where the city does not have to put the money in, they're putting $5 million up front. Not all of it's theirs, but some's coming in grants and from the state, but they're doing that on the front end, which is going to start in May, bringing all that brownfield material out of there, and we have to ship it to who knows where, and clean the property so the title is clear, so they can build a project on it. Because the finance people, the folks at the banks or the folks who deal with money, need to have a clean title before they'll put their dollars and cents on the line, which is very important to all these projects. And then the second project is the Linda Lee Fashions property. We're still working on that. Looks like as of right now it's going to cost about $2 million to clean that up, to do the asbestos and all this stuff in the ground. I was expecting it to be higher, but it's lower than I expected. That again, we need to get control of the property to make that work. And then the other thing is to get a clean title. So, because we have some developers ready to go, but they have to have a clean title to start working on it. So,
yeah, we found out the longer we wait to address some of these issues, the more expensive it gets, especially with respect to what we're calling the PIT project. And my cap is off to the Beldens, by the way. Just
absolutely,
what a family, willing to really risk stuff to get something finally done after 50 years almost,
50
right?
50
years, yeah. And unfortunately, some of the businesses that occupied some of that area, same with Linda Lee, put some toxic stuff into the ground that, had we known back then, we probably would have done it differently, but it's done, and they do have to take all that sort of bad, toxic dirt away.
Right.
I think they're moving it to Ohio, from what I'm remembering.
It's my understanding. I thought it was Minnesota, Ohio, somewhere out there. Yeah. They got to ship it out there.
So. And then they'll put a cement foundation so it caps it.
Yep.
and then the construction will begin. But that has the potential to be just a life-changing project in downtown.
It's going to stimulate a lot more activity downtown. It also, the Paramount is moving at the same time. They've got another $5 million going to that building with a conference center on the 3rd and 4th floor, which is going to mirror the hotel, which is going to be a nice fit. All of a sudden, all these small businesses have opportunity to come into the ground floors. The other part of this project is to get the upstairs floors into housing in downtown. Because more foot traffic you have in downtown, all the small businesses do better.
Mm-hmm.
That's nothing new. We did that in the 50s, in the 40s.
We're talking to Alderman Bill Gillam and Alderman Larry Cupoli, both of whom were just elected to the Rutland City Board of Aldermen, or as some people call it, the City Council. And by the way, if anyone's listening and would like to be on the show that was also just elected, and I'm counting there's 4 others, I think, that potentially fit into that category.
Yes,
we could certainly open our mics and have you come in as guests on the show too. I don't mean to always sort of make it political one way or another. We haven't talked about any political party yet today, folks. We're talking about issues that affect all of us, and we did see a pretty good change in the city council this time back in earlier this month, the town meeting. So we'll have to wait and see. Larry and Bill have both voiced support for what they hope will be committee assignments, and those won't be available until tomorrow because this show is going to air on the 16th, and the committee assignments will be made on St. Patrick's Day, the 17th, and then a new board president will be elected. Is that pretty much the way things go in terms of the same way the Senate operates in the House, where there's nominations from the floor, and then the floor, the nominations are closed, and then you vote, right?
That's correct.
So that's interesting. So you mentioned there's 11 members, Bill, but 10 of them only will vote after the election of the president. So there'll be 11 votes for the president.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Interesting.
And the clerk of the city clerk actually runs the election.
Okay. And I mean, it's just speculation on our part, so it's probably not necessary for us to go into that, but we could see perhaps a new I guess we are going to see a new board president, because as far as I know, Mr. Talbot has indicated he doesn't want to run for the board presidency again, so there'll probably be a new board president, and then that person, that's a lot of much like in the House, the Speaker has the ultimate decision about who gets on what committee. In the Senate it's a little different. There's 3 people, the pro tem, someone's elected from the body, and then also the lieutenant governor, and those 3 people decide as a group who gets what assignments. But in the city and in the House of Representatives, it's only one person, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep.
So lots of power there, I guess you could say, right? Okay.
But not as much power as you may think, because he's got to deal with 10 people.
He's got to. That's right.
All their wishes and trying to fit it into where everybody's going to work together.
Yeah. And that's the ideal. I mean, really, it's, I don't know. Sometimes I think it's a lot easier to sort of not necessarily always vote no on something. You can get a lot better. You can get a lot more accomplished if Larry's tapping on the microphone. If you just work with people and come together with some consensus and get stuff done. Because everybody wants something.
That's correct. And that is probably the worst job for the president, is to how to equalize that all out.
That's right.
Make all the family happier.
And that's the same thing in the General Assembly. If you are in the position of power in terms of political parties, you have a tendency to sort of make it a little bit more one way than the other. But in the end, as is true now in the Senate, with 17 and 13, 17 Democrats / progressives and 13 Republicans, you have to have at least a couple on every committee, and the committees are only 5. So it has a tendency to be a little bit more thoughtful, I think, than it might have been in days past. I've been there 11 years, and this is the first time that it's been this close in terms of the numbers. So we talked about the TIF district. I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to change downtown Rutland more than anything has since I've been here, and I've been here since the early or mid-'60s. And I can remember when, Friday nights used to be a big deal because the stores would stay open until 9 and everybody was out shopping and enjoying maybe dinner out or something. And then it kind of went through a couple of phases where it wasn't as good. And I think it's on its way back. I really do. And I think that that hotel project is key to that. And as you mentioned, Bill, the Paramount with the Richardson building is also going to be very, very important. For many years, I think the Paramount could have had even bigger name acts come in if they had a place to stay right there in downtown, and now they will. So that's going to be great. It really is.
Yep. And don't forget, there's also 20 housing units on the top floor.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's the reason why they did that, because the financial package they had to put together to make it work. You're going to have 99 rooms, you're going to have a restaurant, you're going to have a up on the roof bar area, and then you're going to have 20 units of housing. So their finances, they could put a package together that's going to make it work. Yeah. And that was the important thing. The other important thing is, this is not an out-of-state company, this is not an out-of-state people that we have no control on. These are local folks who have proven over and over and over that they are good, responsible business people. That's why the city went in partnership with them, because we know what their outcomes are going to be.
Yeah. Okay, we're talking to Larry Cupoli and Bill Gillam from the Rutland City Board of Aldermen. We'll take our first break here on Catamount Community Connection and be right back. Welcome back to Catamount Community Connection. I'm your weekly host, Brian Collamore. And again, the show is brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair in Rutland since 1846. We had a chance for the past 2 weeks to talk to Robert Congdon, the president of the fair and also the president of the Fairs Association. And I think you all got a pretty good sense of that 3-acre rule and how it's going to, well, I don't know how else to put it. It'll put the fair out of business if we don't figure a way to fix it. And the issue there was, of course, if you own 3 acres or more of impervious surface, that is surface that doesn't accept water and, be able to store it underneath the ground, kind of, then you have to figure a way to mitigate it. You got to put a pond in or pump it away or something. And the fair just is not in a position to do that. So we'll have the 179th fair. I can tell you that in August, and we're all looking forward to that. It's a great fair. It's, in my view, obviously the best fair in the state, and we're going to desperately work to find a way to help out the Vermont State Fair, because it's really it's key, it's important, it's crucial to the area. So, yeah, Robert was a good guest.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
Because I was chair of Public Works. That is a project that we're working on in committee right now, on dealing with the impaired waters.
Yeah.
And the fairgrounds is one of those issues that we're dealing with, because the Moon Brook, Muzzy Brook goes through their fairground area. We already had put in some money for grants to work on that and figure out how we can help solve their problem, because they're not going to be able to do this on their own.
No.
And the city's not going to be able to do it on their own. So we're going to need help from federal and state to make this work, because it's their policies that they're bringing down to us that we have to follow. So,
Yep.
Well, hello, bring a little money in to help us.
Yeah.
We'll deal with it.
They're in a completely different position than some of the other fairs that are impacted with this Champlain Valley watershed and the total, what is it, TMDL, the total maximum daily load. The one in Burlington, the big one, the biggest one in the state, has plenty of land, and they've already got a pond or something. They can do it. Addison also has a lot of fields that they can have the water drain into. And the other one is Orleans. And that also is in a little better shape. Rutland is surrounded by private property. There's nothing else they can do. So we need to help them out. Anyway, we're talking today to Larry Cupoli and Bill Gillam, newly elected members of the City Council. And I again will make the offer, if there are any of the other newly elected, so that would be 6 of them, right? Or 5? Now I'm confused.
Four
and 2 incumbents.
4 and 2 incumbents, so 6 total. They'd be willing to, or I'd be willing certainly to have them come on. We usually only take 2 at a time, so if any of the other aldermen are listening or people that know them and say, hey, you ought to get on that show, because he's already had Cupoli and Gillam on, be my guest. Next week I've already got Peg Belgioni booked, but the following week, be glad to talk with folks. I haven't had the mayor back on, since his reelection, but I'm planning on that. He usually is pretty good about checking in every month to 6 weeks and letting us know what's going on there. And I love having the police chief on at least every 5 or 6 weeks as well to kind of bring us up to date on the public safety issues. So what other issues is the city going to face here in the next year or so? We talked about the TIF district, and it seems to be moving along pretty well. We're hoping to hear from VEPSI soon with an approval for the so-called hotel project going forward. But there must be other issues that either of you can put your finger on to talk about.
I'll yield to Larry.
All right.
Well,
enough mic time here.
No, that's quite okay. I've spent a lot of years on the mic, but anyway, I think I'm a little more fiscally responsible, I think, than some other people.
Than Bill?
Certainly more than Bill. But I represent people in the city of Rutland, and I know for a fact, I hear from people, taxes are rising every year. One of the things that I reflect on is last year was really tough for a lot of people. Blaming it on education fund or whatever. I mean, our municipal tax went up as well. Mm-hmm. Budgets need to be really scrutinized, and I think that all of us are certainly willing to work with the mayor. But I need to say, as in the November election and our recent election, I think people voted with their wallets. I think they want new leadership. I think they want leadership that's going to be responsible, and look at spending as needed, not as wanted. And this is really, really critical, I think, for the city of Rutland. And I'm happy to participate in those conversations.
Yeah. No, I think you raise a good point, Larry. And the governor has always said we need to distinguish between our wants and our needs.
Exactly.
And really focus on the latter part. Because you can always spend more money if you want to, but it's really crucial, especially now. I was a little bit surprised, I have to say, with the passing of most of the school budgets on town meeting day. I know Mount Holly voted no, and there was one other one that was there. There was a one vote thing, and they talked about maybe doing a recount on that. But they really seemed to fly through without any issues. I get sort of mixed messages there. We had our mayor of the city reelected, again, rather handily, to be fair. And yet the Board of Aldermen has a completely new personality because 3 of the incumbents did not get reelected. There's new people coming in who may certainly, to be fair, again, represent a little older generation, perhaps. No offense, Larry. And, maybe a little bit more conservative. So that's those. But I think that points to a word I like to use a lot is balance. I think people are looking for people to work together and maintain this balance.
Well, that's what I ran on. It was on balance and being responsible. We have done some real good stuff here in the last couple of years to how to manage our money. The voters had voted on town meeting day on putting some money aside for the fire equipment fund and the police equipment fund. It's like setting for a piggy bank. We put a little bit every year. Boom, boom, boom. So we're not financing vehicles anymore because we are spending a lot of money on financing, okay, and bonding for these things. So if we can pay cash for a fire truck, cash for police cars, we're saving taxpayers long-term a lot of money. And we're also taking the 1% sales tax that we have now collecting. We're collecting about 1.4, 1.5. We did really well last quarter. That means the businesses in Rutland did $400 million in a quarter in sales. That's impressive. That's a great number. So we are climbing there. So we're getting 1% of that. So we are taking 1/3 of that and put it towards the pension and knock the pension expenses down. So we're not hitting the taxpayer on the tax rate with that. That's outside of the tax rate. Right. And then we're taking another 1/3 and we're putting that in the building fund and a capital fund to help correct our buildings that need to get fixed without going to bonding. Okay. So we just passed a bond, which is coming from the 1%, not from the property tax people. It's coming from that program. And we're going to take care of the chiller at the George Eddy Park, which is a real need to happen there because we have ammonia issues that we got to deal with. So that'll be corrected forever, and putting new equipment in there. And then there's a couple of other little projects. So we're not hitting the taxpayer anymore. That is the key. And the TIF bond does the same thing. It does not hit the homeowner and the business person on the tax rate. It comes from future taxes to pay for that bond. And it's very important that we are also doing some other projects with Public Works. We're also doing the separation, CSO, I think it's called. We're putting a 1 million-gallon holding tank underneath Meadow Street Playground here in a year and a half. We're fixing School Street. We're fixing Meadow Street, putting all new lines in. So everything from downtown on the new project will go into that holding tank and not into the river directly.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a lot of things happening.
The state used to call it a rainy day fund, but I think the idea is similar, where you're putting money away and hopefully allowing it to gain interest or at least become a little bit bigger. And then when you need it, you're able to pay cash. The way things are going, again, life is so uncertain right now with these tariffs that I did see the other day, and I'm hoping this isn't true, that vehicles could be $1,500 to $2,500 more to buy if the tariff goes through. We have a lot of vehicles that are made in Mexico and a lot that come across from our northern neighbors in Canada. So I'm hoping that whole thing sort of just settles down at some point and we can...
So people don't understand, like, to build a fire truck today, you're looking at 1 million parts going into a fire truck. Hydraulics and hoses and ladders and steel and plastic. Those all come from all over the world, and they actually put it together down in some southern states. They put the trucks together, but the product is coming from overseas to put these things together. So it does affect us locally.
Yep. Larry, do you see any other issues coming up that you want to get involved with? I know you mentioned you want to be on the Finance Committee, so you will have at least a part to play in the budget coming up. But
and other projects that come forward from the board.
Anything that has to deal with money.
That's right. Go through finance. Okay. So it will be interesting for me. I've been to some of those meetings in the past, although I was not on the committee. But I certainly look forward to being appointed there if that comes to fruition. There's a lot of things with the recreation department, which is an interesting part of the city. It's the only department that really raises money. I mean, they bring in a lot of money from all of their programs. Kim Peters has done a marvelous job with developing the rec department into what it is today. People from all over the place go down to the community center down there, and they walk and play pickleball, and kids basketball program is wonderful. And they have machines down there that you can, pump iron or whatever the case may be. And
it's called the community center for a reason, because we do events there.
Yes.
So she's making money on events, also brings activity to the city.
Yep.
So it's great. And I'm just looking forward to a very, very exciting time in the next couple of years. And, of course, Brian, as you know, yes, I will be the oldest person on the board.
Well, I didn't mean to imply that. I just said.
I think after my 2-year term is up, I'll be 80 years old.
Yeah. Some of the other members that were just elected are also aging to some degree. Clifford might be an exception. He doesn't, well, maybe he is a little older than I think he is, but Tom Donahue is the other one, and I'm blanking on the third person.
David Allaire.
Yeah.
So... yeah, I think Alderman Gillam hit it on the head. I think people were very thoughtful in choosing who they voted for this time around, especially at town meeting, much like we saw in the November general election where, the supermajority had their way for quite a few terms. As I said, I've been there now my 11th year, and for 10 of those 11, it was pretty one-sided, and we knew that if a bill passed, even with a veto, it probably was going to get overridden. So things are a little different in Montpelier now, and hopefully, more thoughtful and a little more balanced. And I think on the local front, you'll see the same sort of thing where, every now and then you need to tap the brakes and say, whoa, wait a minute. Let's think about this and follow it all the way through to perhaps some unintended consequences that at first blush you may not be thinking about. and then go from there. But I think the city's in pretty good shape. I spend a lot of time when I get home on the weekend going to downtown businesses and seeing people happy, and it seems like it's a thriving downtown again, and it'll get even more so with the hotel coming in, I think. So things are good there. There anything that the Vermont State Legislature could do? Do you think, either of you, to help things along? We did sort of take that TIF district request under our wing a little bit and rewrote a part of it so that this could happen. Of course, Killington's got their own TIF district to deal with up there. Right now, it's not a Tier 1A project. It's a lot bigger than the Rutland project.
Very much.
I mean,
much
multiplying. But maybe they'll find a way to get that one done as well. But if there's anything else that you think we could do, when we talk to Chief Kilcullen, a lot of times, we focus on public safety because that's sort of where his ballywick is, and I think we have a couple of good bills in place this year to help our law enforcement partners do their job a little more easily, and the judicial branch. Oftentimes we, I think unfairly, at least some people do, I try not to, but unfairly criticize our judges for some of the decisions that are made. But in a sense, their hands are tied too because of what we have on the books. So we need to very carefully, I think, tweak a lot of those things. But I didn't know if there are any other issues.
That's very important. I mean, repeat offenders is a big issue in the city. We're constantly, it's like a revolving door. If you guys can do things up there, which you have moved already in a direction, so 3 strikes are out, those type of things, so we can start holding these people accountable for their actions. So the community becomes a viable place again. A lot of people, have a fear in the community. They just shouldn't. Rutland is the safest. I live in the Cleveland Avenue area. We've had our issues, but it is pretty much safe than being in Harlem or where else they're having problems, or even in Burlington.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have a great community. We just need to put a little frosting on it. I think we need to do a good showcase and show people what we're doing here, because a lot of things are happening, but the general public do not know what's happening. Yeah. So we need to get in front of that. Part of this TIF project, we're going to hire a consultant to do the PR work so people understand every step of the way how we're going to do that. And then I also heard at the election, people are really concerned during the construction when we're ripping everything up downtown. Well, what's going to happen to my business? Well, we're going to take the same model as Brandon did. Get ahead of it. Make sure the public knows that these streets are open at certain times or closed at certain times. Communications to the business people, so when they're having shipment of steel coming in or whatever, they know that this is happening today. Every day there'll be like an email or a communication going out to the businesses that this is what's happening here. Because, there's going to be some interruptions. Yeah, but when we're all done, it's like Brandon, it's going to look like a whole different game.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, great points, Bill, for sure. And again, we talk so often about the revolving door situation. I was very heartened when I had the police chief in the last time, and to have him talk about this treatment court. We used to call it court or drug court, I guess, at one point.
Yep.
Yeah. Judge McCaffrey instituted that along with former Senator Peg Flory, if I remember correctly. But if you see it in person, if you see it operating in the courtroom, it's really something special, and that is exactly the type of thing that I think we need.
Right, absolutely, and it's the same thing as the the homeless crisis. We need to wrap things around it. Okay, and I got a little heat over the IHM idea of putting it's not a soup kitchen; it's a feeding area, support area. You bring your services in, your dentist, your doctor, your mental health workers, your social workers, the people, job people, and wrap around these people and work them out of their situation and not pay to warehouse them.
Yeah.
We need to get away from that.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with the hotel business, that people living in the hotels really have not had any services available to them to get them moving, and finding other resources for them has just not been available. And hopefully that will change here in the next 6-7 months or so.
During the debate for this election, I stated very clearly, this is nothing new. We had a poor farm system. We have an overseer of the poor was an elected position. The churches all worked with them. We had doctors working with them, dentists work with them, employers work with them. It was a place where they can hold for a period of time, grow their own food, all sorts of things, build up job skills, and then move them out back in the community. There's nothing new. We just got to take that system and rework it and put it back out there again.
So by the time you folks hear this show on the 16th, we're recording it, by the way, on the 10th, the so-called BAA, the Budget Adjustment Act, will have probably left the House in its second term and moved along, and the governor has already indicated he will veto that bill. It does include a $1.8 million continuation of the so-called motel hotel program until June, and I think that the House is going to get the first shot because it's a money bill, and the House has first pick at it. I think it'll be sustained, his veto in the House, so the Senate won't have to act on it at all. But I'll be very upfront. I voted against the budget when it was on the Senate floor, and I would vote to sustain the governor's veto of that, not just because of the 1.8, although that's a big thing to me, because I think we've demonstrated very clearly that is not working. It's not a model that has had any success. And I feel more badly about the moms and the kids that are in the hotels than I do some of the other folks who are there. They're powerless to do anything to help themselves right now, and they're living in pretty bad situations. So I'm hoping that that the governor's veto is sustained. The other issue that came up during the debate on that budget was the state treasurer, who had, I think, $20 million set aside to pay down the debt, and decided not to do that. And so $14 million of it was moved back so that people could otherwise spend that. So anyway, that's where I am with that. But I think by the time you hear this program, the governor, if he gets it by Friday, he said he would veto it immediately. So you may be hearing that later it'll be last week, because the show isn't going to air until right. It gets a little complicated here when you're recording ahead of time. But anyway,
I think you're onto something here, because we've suffered here in Rutland area, Rutland Town, Rutland City, dealing with this issue, and it's been a hardship on all our services, police, health, and other agencies.
It's been costly in many ways.
Very costly.
I look at the school system with these children who are living in the hotels. Their ability to learn is really hampered. They're living in horrible conditions amongst who knows what, and it's kind of tragic to see this happening in our school system. So, Brian, you're right. The mothers and the children really...
Yeah, they're the innocent
They're the
victims.
innocent people, and it's tough. But the school system is doing a great job with them. They're trying their best to feed them, number one, to make sure that they're getting good nutrition, and in some respects to clothe them and keep them healthy. So it's been tough all around.
Yep. We're talking to Alderman Bill Gillam and Larry Cupoli, newly elected to the Rutland City Board of Aldermen. We need to take our second break here on Catamount Community Connection. We will do that and be back with our final 10 minutes or so in just a minute. And again, welcome back to Catamount Community Connection, our weekly public affairs program here at Catamount Radio. I'm Brian Collamore. Each and every Sunday, we talk with folks from the business, professional, nonprofit, and political arenas in the county. Try to keep you apprised of what is going on. Our show brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which is already looking forward to the 179th Vermont State Fair in Rutland. And that'll be coming up August 12th through the 10th this summer, where it'll be a lot warmer. Although this week we did get a little bit of a warm spell, which felt really good, too. We're talking today with newly elected aldermen, Bill Gillam and Larry Cupoli. And again, for those of you that are listening and may either know one of the other newly elected Board of Aldermen folks, I would love to have them come on the show and they can certainly reach out and contact me, and I'll be glad to put them on as well, and we could talk about some of the issues that they see coming up affecting the city. One of the things that takes a lot of time on a I don't know if it's a biannual basis or a 3-year or 4-year or 5-year contract, but are the contracts that folks have with city services, and that does take a lot of time, a lot of negotiation, back and forth. The good news is we don't have to worry about that for a little bit of time, right?
No, we don't. We just passed the police contract 2 Mondays ago, and the fire contract the same time, and Public Works has been done a year ago. So all those contracts are in place for the next 3 years. The city cops have 3 years. Public Works has another 2 years, and the fire has 5 years on their contracts. And a lot of people are wondering why I voted no on the police contract. It has nothing to do with cops, has nothing to do with salaries. I do really support my cops. I really support the police chief, what they're doing, their programs that they're doing. They're doing a real good job for the little bit we have. We're now back staffed up where we should be. We're still a little short, not as much as we were, because we had 3 from Brandon that came in, 3 cops from Brandon. The only part I did, we voted on a 6-4 vote, and the 4 of us have voted no. Had nothing to do with salaries. The salaries had no problem with, because we need to pay cops. We really do, and we need to be competitive, because the state police is really beating us up because their salaries are up. So we're okay there. It's the benefit package was pretty high. On the retirement part, which we are involved with the state pension, VEPR, I think, or VEP, whatever it's called.
Yep, VEPR.
And they were at C, they went to D, which is a little bit more expensive. We're looking at 12-15% match here, which is unusual where the private market's at, where they're at 8 and 9 and type thing. So I thought that was a little heavy. And the other thing I can't predict is what the state's going to do year to year, because now they raised it another 25% this year. Yeah. So there is no control on our end, on our budgets, where we can control that. Not saying they shouldn't get retirement. That's not the issue. It's how we pay for it. It's coming from taxpayers. Again, balance. And as an alderman, we got to look at not just that one contract. We got to look at all the contracts and all the budgets and figure out how we're going to take this money we're getting from the taxpayers and keep the rate down as possible. That's the challenge that we have in the next couple of years.
For sure. So we talked to Larry about maybe hoping he gets on a certain committee, the finance committee. How many committees are there on the board? How many people are on each of them? Is it always a standard number? And how often do they meet and all that kind of stuff?
So there might be some reorganization. We had, I think, 10 standing. I think we're going to go back to 8. We also have select committees, and I think there's 5 or 6 of those. And then you have representation. Like I'm a representative from the city on the solid waste district. Okay. Yep. So each one of us take a organization that we are connected to. So, and those are all our assignments. So each one, there's 5 members to each committee, except for special liquor, which is 3. And I think there's intermunicipal is 3. Yeah. Intermunicipal is what we deal with outside the city with other governments. And there is going to be some issues coming up with Rutland Town. Rutland Town's experiencing some issues with water on the hill, on the Killington Avenue up there on the Town Line Road. The state, as you know, wants everybody to go to a municipal system someday, like Killington's doing now, because the water systems are failing. So that's going to be an issue coming to me, because of being on Public Works, I've already got a heads up from the selectmen from Rutland Town that there's going to be some issues coming up. And we have the capacity to connect. And we already have the water line going to the top of Killington Avenue. The problem is, when you only have a one-way water line and you're not looped, you haven't got enough pressure for firefighting hydrants, okay? And so we have a couple spots in the city that we got to correct that, like Water Street, Chaplain Avenue. They need to have loops so the pressure is there. And that's the problem with Rutland Town. So if we can solve Rutland Town's problem and solve our pressure problem at the same time, obviously the taxpayer's not going to pay for that. They'll come through a water, or what they call a fire district. They form a fire district for that, and they can qualify for money more than we could in the city, and then we would hook them up. Okay. So there's another avenue where we can bring revenue into the city, but meanwhile solve Rutland Town's problem at the same time.
And how many committees is each alder person on generally?
5 to 6.
Yeah, depends.
You must spend a lot of time meeting.
You do. Just every day. Every
The public
single
has
day.
no idea how much time. I think we
Every
make
day.
about, 65 cents a meeting? Something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you know well from the legislative way. I mean, we're there every Tuesday through Friday, and as the session gets a little longer, sometimes it's Saturday, sometimes it's Monday, depending on the committee. And, you certainly can't retire on what you make in the General Assembly in terms of salaries.
And there's no benefits, I might add.
There's no benefits.
No,
That's
there are not.
exactly.
So it's the same with local government. You guys get a certain stipend, and it doesn't nearly cover your time very well. And that's true for a lot of people. I'm just saying that sometimes people don't understand how much time really is involved with public service.
Right.
That's why they call it public service.
Yeah, and you're kind of
It's
like always
exactly.
on duty, too, regardless of where you go. If you go into the grocery store or the sporting goods store or wherever you go, someone's always tugging you on your shirt and saying, hey, you know what you guys ought to do? And, you have to take time out.
Sure.
You have to be congenial and try to solve their problem, I guess.
That's why it takes an hour to go get milk.
Yes, it does.
Well, you could be like Joe Crowley. I'll never.
No,
I mean, I got some great Joe Crowley stories with Merle watching TV one Sunday, and Joe had said, "I'm going to go get the paper. I'll be right back." And she's watching the next thing she knows at the Army-Navy game, and here comes Joe on TV from New York, walking in with the Army band or the Navy band, one of them, and she just shook her head. So anyway,
funny.
Joe was always. If you took him anywhere, you couldn't just get there and get out very quickly.
No,
He was
great.
the second mayor.
Yeah, he really was.
There's no question.
Really was. I went to a Red Sox game with him, and before we were in there for 10 minutes, every usher knew him. We were in the dugout just visiting with some of the players. I mean, it was unbelievable. Here's this guy from Rutland, and he knows everybody. So those are my Joe Crowley stories. I miss him a lot. We used to have a lot of fun with him here at the radio station, for sure. So we're talking to Bill Gillam and Larry Cupoli, some of the newly elected members of the city council. We talked about some of the issues that have come up, some of which can be sort of addressed locally and maybe smoothed out and fixed. Some of them are a little bit more complicated and take some state help, and even some federal situations. We have 3 congressional representatives, 2 senators, and 1 congresswoman, and sometimes you have to appeal to them. It's funny because a lot of people don't see the difference between those 3 strata, if you will, and they think that I can do something about federal income tax. Well, there's nothing I can do about that. You got to go all the way to the top for that. And I'm sure people approach you as Board of Aldermen members with a state issue that you can't help solve without help from the General Assembly. So, and it's funny how seemingly, I don't know if it's innocuous, but a barking dog or something like that. But that is so important to whoever it is that's getting upset about it, and there's not too much you can do about it when you get right down to it.
The other issue people need to understand, and it's my favorite topic, is the roads, how they're crumbling. But then there's roads that are really good. We've done some real good, serious work on them. But people need to understand why we have a picking order for the roads. A lot of people, like on Water Street and some other street, why is my road? Because we have to do the plumbing underneath first.
That's correct.
Let's not go back and dig it up again. We've already done that program. We're now really more organized. So when the state came in and did the paving project on Route 4 and 7, we did all the stemming out. All the water lines are now in the other road that we're going to dig up and fix. Those are all in place now. We were scrambled and did that work. We coordinated with the contractor and got that stuff. So all that stuff is happening in the background where people don't have no idea. The city engineer and the public works commissioner are working with these other agencies. So when we get to do the project, we're not digging the damn thing up again. You know what I'm saying? So, so we can if people understand that their road is in disrepair because there's other issues that have to happen to it first.
Okay.
And those are on the list to do. Like, for instance, the one we're going to do this summer is Door Drive.
Oh.
From bridge to bridge. 11 feet lanes are going to go in with some, not really a bike lane, but an area where kids are off the road. And we're also looking at maybe fixing the bike path so they're not going down that road. We're talking about crossing, as you come across the Door Drive Bridge, across the street, you see that house on the hill. There's a property line there that takes us right into the rec center. so we can go into the rec center. So we get the kids off the road. So once they come across the bridge, they go into that bike path right into there. And we're not going to pave it. We're going to do, crush, whatever they call it, sure pack for now. So at least kids have a safe way to get there. So because there's a lot of people who go to the rec and use that facility. That is probably one of our best investments that we've made in the city. And I thank the voters for doing that. I know it was hard to vote on because it raises your tax. They were paying a bond on it. And but it is constantly used from 6 a.m. to almost 9:30 at night. There's constantly stuff going in and out of there. So.
And that's the one right by the vet business there, if I'm thinking about the right one? Yeah.
The finished bike path comes there and ends there, and it goes. When we built the bridges, we put the bike paths on the bridges at the same time.
Okay.
So, or the pedestrian walkways, we call
pedestrian walkway.
Yep.
So the other group that I've been a big fan of for a while is Lyle Jepson's group, CEDAR, Chamber and Economic Development of the Rutland Region. And I know you folks must work pretty closely with Lyle. We have this unbelievable Whoopie Pie Festival every summer, and they have monthly mixers and all that kind of stuff. So I know that hopefully the other members of the board and the mayor are looking forward to working to continue, because they've really been the backbone in many ways of this economic development that we're seeing.
Well, we're a member.
Yep.
We put money in there. We also put some of the HARPA money in there to get the hub up and running. We put, I think, $300,000 into that to be a partner. Right now, government cannot do it alone, and neither can business do it alone. It needs to be a partnership from the future here to get things done. They have 3 or 4 standing committees that work with our committees. They also are doing the marketing to bring people here, which we could not do that. We don't have the capability to do that. Right. So, and it's the same thing we do with regional ambulance. It's the same thing we do with all these other regional organizations. It's very cheap for us to have, $65,000 to regional ambulance. We can't even buy an ambulance for that price or even pay someone for that price. So we have now a whole huge ambulance service that provides service for 26 towns. It's the only way we can go. It's sort of like county government type thing. We all pay our fair share, and we're only paying per head, so it's good.
And other communities invest in CEDAR.
Yep.
Great group.
Lyle goes out, and
every town that's involved is $1 per person.
Yes.
Is the dues.
Well, listen, guys, the hour's gone pretty quickly. I want to thank you both, Alderman Bill Gillam and Alderman Larry Cupoli, newly elected or re-elected to the Rutland City Board of Aldermen. If you are an alderman listening and want to come on the show, please get a hold of me. And if you know someone who's on the board and you say, hey, you ought to get on that show, this is just as easily as I can say it. Just give me a call and we will put you on in some of the coming weeks and talk about some of the issues that might be coming up in your world as well. So thank you both, gentlemen, and we'll hopefully get you back on soon.
Well, thanks for having us, Brian.
And we will see all of you next Sunday on Catamount Community Connection.